Well, hello, friends, and welcome to today's live level up conversation. Whether you're joining me live or catching me on replay, thank you so much for being with me. Happy Wednesday. Let's dive right in.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun. Award-winning financial pro. Get ready. Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the show. It is wonderful to join you here. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for making the time. I'm Winnie, your host, an award winning financial pro, a Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member and contributor as well. We're streaming here live on a whole bunch of different social media platforms. So jump in, say hello, introduce yourself. It's great to be here with you. Well, as you know, the market has closed, and let me just tell you how it closed. Currently, the Dow closed down 171 points today. Nasdaq closed up in the positive, up 31 points, and the S&P 500 also down just shy of 8 points. But that being said, there's been so much financial news and business news that I want to make sure that's on your radar. One of the big stories, of course, is what the Fed is going to be doing. Now, we know that the US economy recently grew about 3% in the second quarter. Consumer spending, of course, has also jumped, but inflation, unfortunately, has erased a lot of purchasing power from many Americans. So despite a 1.8% drop in exports, well, here in the US, GDP growth has held firm, pushing back against recession concerns fueled, of course, by the Trump administration's tariffs. Now, the Fed has said they're going to be holding rates steady about 4.25 to 4.5%, despite a lot of pressure coming from President Trump and his administration about, making sure that interest rates are cut. Now, President Trump continues to push for cuts, but of course, we know that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is pointing to inflation progress and housing strain and just saying, not quite yet. But internal Fed division, of course, is rising and no consensus yet now for whether a cut will happen before September, leaving, of course, financial markets kind of mixed. And that's what we're seeing today. But the Fed, of course, is saying that they're going to be very cautious and they're going to take a look at different signals to make sure that they're not too early, but also not too late. Now, speaking of the Trump administration, I want to make sure that this was also on your radar because not only are they talking about Fed rates in general, but CNN is reporting that the Trump administration is also preparing major changes to the Federal Reserve, starting with deregulation and workforce cuts. In fact, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has criticized the Fed's PhD heavy staff, too many doctors, right? Calling for a deep review of its effectiveness. And of course, Michelle Bowman, who is the newly elevated official by the Trump administration to vice chair, is also leading efforts to roll back some of the post 2008 banking regulations. Now, that's probably good news for those of you who are in the banking industry, but not sure how that's going to, impact sort of mainstream America, if you will. But Michelle Bowman's recent proposal would, of course, reduce capital requirements that big banks need to have. This is important. We want to make sure that banks have a certain amount of cash reserves just in case you need access to your money as well as maybe the entire neighborhood. But a move, of course, this is praised by industry, but of course, criticized by increasing systematic risk. Now, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell plans a 10% workforce reduction, but Trump officials are actually looking for deeper cuts, more aggressive downsizing. I don't know if they got hit by Doge, but it sounds like that's sort of the direction that's going as well. Now, with that, of course, there's been more talk in government about different changes. And one area that I meant to make sure that's on your radar as well, and this was kind of touched upon by the big, beautiful bill. There's been some changes in terms of if you were looking to purchase an electric vehicle, whether for yourself or your business. Well, in addition to that, there's been even more impact in the automotive industry. In fact, luxury car makers, this is reported by CNBC, are warning that US tariffs have cost nearly $900 million. That's right. So some of these major sort of luxury vehicle brands such as Porsche and Mercedes-Benz and Aston Martin, they're saying that US import tariffs have cost them a combined 889 million big dollars. In fact, Porsche's CEO has warned that this isn't a passing storm. They're saying that this is going to have long-term financial effects, and it's going to definitely put strains on trade tensions between different countries. In fact, the tariff impact, now we know, is going to include higher parts costs if you need your car replaced or repaired, disrupting supply chains, and even squeezing profit margins as well. And just a really quick hello and welcome to Joshua and Sadiq. I see you both on YouTube Live. I see many of you on different platforms. Thanks so much for making the time. So, yes, many luxury brands we know rely heavily on US buyers, making unfortunately them very susceptible and vulnerable to these trade discussions. And the rising costs come as the industry as a whole is already grappling with the electric vehicle transition expenses, inflation pressures as well, not to mention some of the pressures coming from the increased cost of wages and employees, right? So these escalating tariffs, especially targeting countries tied to Russia, are reshaping global car trade routes. In fact, automakers may need to shift production or raise prices, challenging customer loyalty and also future growth. And speaking of changes, this is another big one that's occurring, and that is in the area of U.S. housing costs. This is being reported by Yahoo News as well as The Street. In fact, you may have heard California wildfire risk here in California. We've seen a lot of impact here. They've actually made 1 in 5 homes now in extreme fire zones uninsurable. In fact, a good friend of mine right now, she's actually in the process of purchasing her first home, and unfortunately is getting impacted by having difficulty be able to secure homeowners insurance because of the risk of being in a fire zone. Now, without insurance, banks actually won't finance home purchases, turning affected properties into now financial dead ends. This is concerning. In fact, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara labels this a statewide crisis, while the US Senate warns of climate driven crash, maybe even worse than 2008. I mean, it makes sense if you're looking to purchase a home or investment property and whatnot, but you can't get insurance on the property. And if you can't get insurance, that the bank might deny you of a mortgage. That makes it so this house, unless you purchase it in cash and you don't need homeowners insurance, that could be a big issue. Now, at the same time, mortgage rates have hovered about 6.5 to 7% this year, making homeownership kind of unaffordable for many people. So, home prices now have more than doubled since 2011, while incomes have increased, but they also lagging, which requires now considerably more to purchase a home that you might be able to have purchased not that long ago at a more affordable level. In fact, Gen Z, millennials especially, actually being priced out. Affordability is becoming a big issue in high cost metros such as San Jose, in DC, in New York. In fact, Fannie Mae now has raised its mortgage forecasting, expecting that there's not going to be much relief for mortgages this year. And that with low inventory, limited new builds, this could actually worsen the housing squeeze for many Americans. The housing market now faces actually a double crisis. We're talking about environmental devaluation, right? Like depending if you're in flood zone, if you're in a fire zone, and of course tie that with economic instability. That's not good. So unfortunately, no quick solutions on the horizon, and hopefully we'll get some better news in that front. And maybe the government has this on their radar. It's going to make some changes there. That is something that we'll have to wait and see. Now, speaking of things that we need to put on your radar, I want to take a moment to talk about some big AI headlines that have been in the news. Now, I know we're all very excited about AI. You know, I know it wasn't that long ago we were all very excited about the internet, the smartphone, and AI's kind of got that big excitement going on right now. But I think there's some stories that have been shared on business news that I want to make sure that you're aware of, because there's two sides of the AI coin. Certainly, there's a lot of positive in there. I don't know the last time where I had to write a complete essay, right? Now with AI, that sort of helps out, and with combination of knowledge and proofreading and your own little bit of humanness and technology, these sort of jobs get done a lot more quickly. But what's the flip side? And you probably heard about some of this already. I see a city talking about machine learning, but let's talk about what's going on some of the big AI companies. Now, OpenAI is launching this new thing called study mode. This is actually shared directly from OpenAI. They've introduced study mode in ChatGPT, which is designed to help students learn step by step instead of just receiving quick answers. So now this is going to be available to all ChatGPT users. It's going to be free. If you have the free plan, you can use this as well. If you have the paid plan, of course, you'll be able to use this. But study mode then guides users with interactive questions and structured content. So they're not going to just give you the answer outright, but like engage you to kind of help your brain kind of learn some of this. Now, key features will include, of course, questioning, quizzes, personalized feedback, tailored learning paths. But this study mode is going to feel like 24/7 office hours, is what they're saying. And so it's going to help you break down these advanced topics like game theory or coding. But users will now be able to toggle between study mode on or off during a session and adjust the sort of depth of learning to match the needs of the student. Now, OpenAI is, of course, exploring future upgrades like visual aids and goal setting and sort of a deeper personalized AI experience for a longer term learning data. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, but obviously I have teens at home, and that's great to think that they would use sort of the student mode. But we'll have to see how much they do, because I do think, especially the younger generation, they want information, they want it quick. But I do agree. I mean, this can be very, very productive if used properly, given, like any other tool. If you use it the way it's designed, it could be really powerful to help you break down complicated scenarios and build teach yourself. Now, this initiative is, of course, part of OpenAI's broader effort through their sort of next gen AI and Stanford's Scale initiative, just to ensure that AI enhances real learning, but that doesn't just give you a shortcut. Now, speaking of other things AI, let's talk about this. You would think that when it comes to entertainment, that this is a controversial topic. And if you thought that, you're absolutely right. Because in the entertainment space, we know that, of course, there's certain things like actors and what they can do, but there's a lot of production that occurs, right? Script writing and a lot of the sort of other jobs that go behind that what makes a movie. And also talking about animated movies. Now, animated movies, if you've seen some of the AI that we've been studying, I mean, it's pretty incredible what AI can do. It's probably just a matter of time when they'll be able to create a full-blown movie or a full-blown animated flick, right? Well, let's talk about one of the leaders in animation, Dreamworks Animation. Well, they're now pushing back against AI, and they actually even shows some warnings of legal action over bad guys too. This is being reported by Radar Plus. DreamWorks added a sort of bold anti-AI statement to the credits of the Bad Guys 2 movie, warning that the use of the film for AI training would actually trigger legal action. Get that. The credit cites global data mining laws, including that from the EU. And this move is really designed to stop AI developers from spawning derivative works that mimic the style and substance of copyrighted content. Now, fans, they're saying, are, applauded the sort of clear stance, calling it really necessary to defend the talent of artists in an era where generative AI really is threatening a lot of creative jobs. Now, the industry, of course, remains somewhat split. Now, while DreamWorks resists, IMAX, on the other hand, is hosting a huge major AI film festival. They're actually being featuring over 6,000 AI generated entries. It's crazy, right? But this backlash, of course, reflects growing tension in Hollywood over the role of AI when it comes to like writing and animation and production, especially since now a lot of studios are looking for cost cutting tools. So this move sort of follows broader legal and ethical battles. We've seen this with Disney and Universal, also labeling AI as sort of a bottomless pit of plagiarism. This is as quoted in a recent lawsuit. But The Bad Guys 2 does hit theaters on August 1st. It's already making waves, but of course, this, I'm curious to see what you think. Do you think this is wise? Do you think this is necessary? I mean, you can only push against AI to a certain extent, right? Will this be enough? Curious to see what you think. I see Siddiq making comments about most of the 3D softwares has AI plugins too now. Thank you so much, Judy, for sharing, for sure. Now, let's continue to talk about this next story. I want to talk about, of course, some of the concerns on AI. This is being shared by Axios publication, talking about how OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has issued a pretty stark warning about a looming AI driven fraud crisis that really we should put on the radar because we're talking about consumer banking and authentication systems. Now, speaking at a recent Federal Reserve conference, Sam Altman of OpenAI said that AI has fully defeated most current identity verification methods, including, get this, voice prints. He actually emphasized that society is unprepared for how quickly AI can be weaponized for account takeovers and financial theft. He even criticized institutions for still relying on outdated security and really urging sort of a fundamental rethinking of authentication processes. He also predicted that bad actors would soon unleash advanced tools capable of bypassing most safeguards, calling the situation very, very soon. He visited Washington and coincided with the Trump administration's upcoming AI action plan, and of course, is expected to promote pro growth, hands off regulation. But Sam is saying that there's growing AI adoption among financial institutions, which he does have some concerns, and I think that in itself should have all of us be concerned. If someone who is that deep in AI, right, leading a lot of the efforts in AI, is that concerned about our safety and our financial safety, I think that we definitely have to be really mindful of that. And if you don't have this already, just a little friendly reminder to set up your two-factor authorization on your financial accounts is really, really important. Now, speaking of other changes, you may have seen what's been happening with Meta and Alibaba. Well, they are going all in. This is reported by NBC News. Well, onto wearables. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg declared AI superintelligence in sight, positioning Meta, his company, to lead sort of a new era of personal empowerment over job automation. What does this all mean? Well, Meta has a super intelligence labs, which is going to steer this push, and it's backed by actually billions of dollars in investment in infrastructure like AI super clusters and even smart glasses. Now, I'm curious for those of you who are with me live right now, what do you think about glasses? We've seen the smart glasses. I just got an email from Meta too. I guess they're putting them into Ray-Bans and whatnot. My question is this: how do you feel about that? Do you feel like this is something that you would wear all the time? Because even people, I feel like, who wear glasses or need glasses for vision, I don't even see them wearing glasses all the time. A lot of people have adopted to contact lenses, but I would say a big part of the population just doesn't want to wear anything like that. That's why LASIK has been so popular, right? Well, smart glasses, of course, are central to Meta's plan. They want to offer AI-powered support for personal goals, learning, creativity, and also human connection. But yes, some top researchers, of course, are rejecting Meta's offers. They're prioritizing ethics and alignment over compensation. But Mark Zuckerberg has warned about the risk of that sort of open source misuse, also warning us about misuse of AI. But meanwhile, Alibaba has entered the arena. They're also introducing something called Quark AI glasses, which is they're going to be their first wearable powered by this QN language model and Quark AI assistant. Now, Alibaba's glasses, to give you an idea, offers hands-free calls, real time in translation, built in camera, and even access to Alipay and Taobao, which is sort of like their payment system that they use, which directly challenges Meta's Ray-Ban line. So the question is, are they going to be able to both successfully, launch these glasses? Is one going to be more popular than the other? And is this like the future? Are we going to be at a point where we no longer carry our smartphones and that everything is going to come from glasses? And how do you feel about that? Are you ready to be wearing glasses all the time? We might have to, right? This might be where the technology is until they put it somewhere else. I know you're thinking what I'm thinking. Where else would they put it? Well, the escalating AI wearable battle does mark for a very big global race now between these two tech giants. And so we'll see how that unfolds. With that, I want to share with you another story completely away from AI now, shared by the New York Times, talking about how Union Pacific will acquire a company called Norfolk Southern for a whopping $85 billion. They're going to be creating the first coast to coast rail system in U.S. history. I thought that was kind of cool. I wanted to make sure that was on your radar because if you're on the East Coast and here I'm on the West Coast, maybe this is another way for you to travel. The deal, they say, will span about 50,000 miles in 43 different states, promising faster, more efficient freight service by cutting handoffs. Now, together, the two rail giants, they say, handled about 43% of the United States. But of course, they want to make that even more productive, even more efficient. And that's what they're working on. They're going to have hubs in places such as Chicago. And of course, this hinges on a lot of approvals and from the Surface Transportation Board. And of course, the Trump administration is supporting rail deregulation, which could influence the board's composition of this. But we'll see how that goes. I'm curious to see how you feel about that. I think it'll be good. I think increase in public transportation is good. And it doesn't include just for humans, but also for things to be supplies to be moving from one part of the country to the other. Especially, I guess, because the Trump administration is encouraging more manufacturing to occur here in the States. I mean, moving things that are needed between the different states is also very important. Now, speaking of things that are important, let me know what you think about this. Also being impacted by the Trump administration. For those of you who go to Starbucks, and I know that Joshua doesn't because he said so on a previous show, but this is being shared by Yahoo Finance because, believe it or not, Starbucks is piloting healthier drink options, including matcha and cold brew with coconut water and agave sweetened syrups. Now, new drinks have up to 70% less sugar than traditional summer refreshers. And now they're going to contain electrolytes for added wellness appeal. Now, of course, this is part of the health conscious Make America Healthy Again era, following pressure from U.S. Health Secretary RFK Jr. for cleaner menus. So Starbucks has seen 6 straight quarters of these sort of changes that are affecting some of their stores, and they're just trying to find other ways. So they're going to be testing some of these things out. They're also going to be testing protein infused cold foam, sugar-free canned energy drinks, and lower calorie frappuccinos. I know frappuccinos are really popular, but I guess it's always been known that they have a lot of sugar. Very sugar-rich drinks that still drive a lot of traffic, but now Starbucks is trying to stay ahead of this, right? And figuring out other markets, testing out coconut drinks. And that's part of the new CEO's initiative to see whether or not these will do well. And speaking of other changes that they're doing at Starbucks, this is being reported by CNN. I'm curious to see how you feel about this. I'm not a Starbucks customer, to be honest with you. I don't drink coffee, so this is not something that really impacts me. But for those of you who do, I don't know if this is a good decision or a bad decision because Starbucks is going to be closing its mobile only pickup store format. They're citing sort of, lack of warmth and human connection. They really want you to go back into the stores. The concept, which was launched in 2019, they say grew to around 90 different U.S. locations in places such as downtowns, near hospitals and airports, probably just because it's really convenient. But CEO Brian Nicol said that the format was sort of too transactional, didn't reflect the brand's identity. In fact, Starbucks will now focus on revitalizing the traditional coffee house feel, cozy setting, seating, and community vibes. So this new prototype store with 10 seats is being tested in New York City. They really want to boost that experience and, still make it just efficient for everybody who visits their stores. We'll see how that goes. But I don't know about you, but I love things like curbside pickup. I love being able to order things on app or online. It's just such a great way. And I just find it to be not only fast and efficient, but I feel like it increases the chance of having the order made right and to be accurate. How does it feel? But let me know. I'm more curious about how you feel, right? Sadiq says, I have more healthier green tea. And yeah, and Joshua says that he'd actually rather have a smartphone than AI glasses. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Joshua, how I feel about that. Yeah, I do find having a smartphone not to be that cumbersome, but maybe if the watches, if the glasses can do just as much. Yeah, speaking of watches, I'd rather it be a watch than glasses. How about that? Can a watch do more? We'll see. And with that, of course, the market already closed before we started, so we don't need to check up on the numbers. But thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of today's Level Up Live. Do me a favor, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest insights in financial news. And of course, not all news, but I think headline news that I think would benefit you, not only to know today, but also so that you can make plans for yourself into the future. And of course, to catch past full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, definitely check out NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and of course the streaming social media platform that you are with me on right now, YouTube for sure. And of course, when sharing an episode online, thank you so much for tagging at Winnie Sun so I can see that. I really, really appreciate it. With that, I hope that you have a beautiful day. We have a special episode coming to you live tomorrow that you don't want to miss. We have a very special guest coming, and I can't wait to introduce him to you. So make a note, put on your schedule, put on your calendar. Make sure to join me tomorrow because I will look forward to seeing you there. All right. With that, have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon, very soon. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.